Hey, what's up, y'all? So if you ever struggle with the sheet name changing on you, causing errors within Power BI, this is going to be the right video for you, so stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss it. All right, so oftentimes when we export data out of a database or a system that we're utilizing, we load it into Power BI, whether it's on a SharePoint site or on your desktop or wherever, you're often going to find that the sheet name that you have may have a date timestamp on it, or it may just have a unique name on the sheet, which then causes an error as you download a new document, especially if it's a date timestamp, and now it's going to have to read that new date timestamp, so you have to update your source every single time, right? So we don't want to do that. We don't want to have too much human involvement when it comes to updating those. So what I'm going to show you is how to get rid of that entire process and strictly have it read the sheet itself, so you no longer have to worry about what the sheet name is at all. All right, so this is one of the documents I have loaded within my Power BI dashboard, and the document name in the default status is going to be export, right? So right now, as I create my data source connection, I select which sheet I want to recognize. It's going to be export, but what I want to show you is what happens if I just change this name off the bat. I'm just going to call it 1, for example, and we can simulate if you had a different date timestamp as well. But for this instance, I'm just going to put 1. I'm going to go ahead and save that real quick, and then I'll close it out. And now what I want to do is I'm just going to click on refresh. All right, so now you can see the error that I'm getting. And this basically is saying that the sheet name does not match. Even though it's saying the keys don't match any rows in the table, that's really what Power BI is telling you. So what we're going to do now is go into Query Editor, and I'm going to show you exactly what you can do to get away from this entire process and then save you time in the long run. All right, so we're going to hop into Query Editor. All right, so once I hop into Query Editor, this is exactly what I'm going to see. It's going to give me the same exact error that I saw when I refreshed my data on the front end. So what I want to do is go into Advanced Editor. All right, so Advanced Editor is going to do a multitude of things for me, right? So what it's going to do is tell me exactly all the steps that I took within my applied steps over here. And it's essentially going to spit them out in the M language. So on the back end side of what Power BI is really displaying. So rather than doing all the transformations that you're doing on the back end of Query Editor, you can also do it here via free text within Advanced Editor. Now, as you can see, it's not DAX any longer, it's ham language, so it's a little bit different, and we'll talk about that at a later cut. But for now, what I want to do is orient you to line 2. So line 2 is essentially going to say export sheet equals source item export, right? So export is the exact sheet name that it's looking for. So it no longer has that reference to look at because we changed the name to 1. So we don't want to have that, right? So we don't want to say, okay, look for an exact sheet name. We want to sequence it based upon the order that it's in. And now if there's no order, then we just want to reference the sheet itself and not necessarily by name. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete this entire statement, and then we're going to write our own within Advanced Editor so that it no longer reads the actual name itself. Now this is going to benefit you in the long run because you no longer have to worry about how many sheets you add to the Excel workbook that you're working in that's brought into Power BI, or you don't have to worry about the sheet name itself. And we're going to sequence it in a way to where if you had multiple sheets, for example, such as 5 sheets within your Excel workbook, we can now identify which one we want based upon the order that they're sitting in. All right, so we're just going to highlight it, and then I'm going to change it to first sheet equals source 0 data. And I'll just explain what all of that means here. So first sheet is just going to be an indicator of what we're using as the name itself. So nothing special there. You can call it whatever you want, to be honest. Source is going to be 0. It's going to be a little bit different than compared to how you'd utilize a VLOOKUP, right? So when you're utilizing a VLOOKUP, you're counting the column itself that you're in to look up as 1. But in M language within Power Query, the sheet that you want to look at rather than a column is going to be 0. That's going to be your starting point rather than a 1. So the first sheet and the only sheet that's within that Excel workbook that we're looking at would be considered a 0 because it's the only sheet and it's the first one. And then the second thing we're going to put in here is going to be data. So that's just pulling all the data itself that's within the entire sheet. So everything that's within the entire sheet that we're looking at that we labeled as 1 is now just going to be migrated into Power BI. Now let's just say you have 5 different sheets, right, that you have being pulled out of your database or wherever you get your data, and you're going to pull the third one, right? So you're actually going to put number 2. And once again, right, the starting point's always going to be 0, and that's whack. But for this, it's going to be 0. And then we have the comma as well to separate these steps how we're applying to delineate that as another step coming in. All right, so once we're done with that, we're going to go ahead and look for any other step that has listed the sheet itself and replace it with first sheet. So here we have export sheet. So all I'm going to do is just type in first sheet. And you can see it pops up as well. And then we're just going to keep scanning through, see if we see anything else. And if we do, we'll change that. Now, it's always better to do this step on the front end before you do any more applied steps so that you don't get too deep in the rabbit hole, which really just makes it a little bit easier for you. All right, so once you're done and you have no more that you have to transform, we're just going to press done. And now, just like that, we have all our data that loaded by itself. So we know that our step worked. So now if you want to just change the exact location of the sheet that you're referencing, you can just change that 0 to a 1 to a 2, whatever it may be. But this more than often will help you resolve any issues that you may have if you're exporting data and then loading it into Power BI. Hey, but just to validate, I always refresh my data just to make sure it works. And as you can see, it worked successfully. Hey, so with that said, that's all I got for today, folks. I hope this video helps you clean your data and then present it in a more efficient manner. And if you could please do me a favor, hit that subscribe button down below, leave a like, leave a comment, let me know what you want to see. And that's all I got for today. Thanks for watching.